So Anakin has killed many enemies, some aliens and other droids, but what I'd like to cover today is the very first being that Anakin killed with his first lightsaber. And killed is an understatement, mind you. Anger was involved, and it's one of the first times that Obi-Wan sees it. The story is meaningful to Anakin's timeline, and it's rather interesting, so if you liked it, at the end feel free to share it on Facebook or wherever you want, as this is one of those that I think is very important to Anakin's arc and timeline. Now, before we begin, I would like to address that this is a 4-issue comic back from the 90s, so while I like bringing comics to life, I feel it would take a little too long if I did that with 4 different issues, and I don't really want to stretch it out for 4 days. So if you do want me to go back and bring each issue to life, I can do that for you. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy this video. Without further ado, here we go. So when Anakin was a little boy, he was a slave. We all know this. But during this time, there was a slave trader named Crane. Now, Crane made Watto look like this guy from A Bug's Life. At well over 7 feet tall, he was evil, vengeful, and nasty to the core, controlling a major part of the slave trade industry on Nar Shaddaa and Tatooine, with his slave raiders finding children and women wherever and however they could. During a mission while Anakin was only 13 years old under Obi-Wan Kenobi, they ventured to deep space to intercept a massive cargo ship filled with goods of all kinds from pirates, the likes of which were Crane and his ship of bandits planning to intercept the cargo. Successfully doing so, Crane didn't notice that Obi-Wan and Anakin's small ship entered his vessel through the large exhaust tunnels and successfully crippled their weapon system. Once aboard, Anakin became extremely emotionally invested in the mission, seeing as how Crane had kidnapped one of Shmi's best friends since he was a little boy and was a leader in the slave trading world on Tatooine. Once Anakin pushed to defy orders from Obi-Wan to leave upon their successful mission, Anakin jumped out of their ship to take care of Crane and his crew aboard the ship, eventually becoming held prisoner and made a slave for a short amount of time. With a spy named Tachi, Obi-Wan escaped to Coruscant without him. Of course, to return with new information that this Tachi spy was actually sent there on the Jedi Council's orders to infiltrate Crane's base operations. As Obi-Wan returned for his Padawan, he pretended to be an inspector, killing an evil Wookiee sent by Crane. Anakin, who had now escaped from the cell Crane threw him in, and Tachi for that matter, he stood upon Crane's private landing platform, completely fearless and fueled with what he felt was justice and purpose, while the reader knows it's just Anakin's anger and rage beginning to finally swell. Anakin confronted the pirate crime lord in his rush to escape the revolution. All the innocent slaves who had come and gone before, both on Nar Shaddaa and on Tatooine, fueled Anakin's power like hatred to a Sith. Now, what I find interesting about this comic in particular is that Anakin even sensed Qui-Gon from the dead at this point, as he extended his approval of what Anakin was about to do to Crane.
You will die at my hands, Crane.
Completely ignoring Obi-Wan's shouts and commands from above to spare Crane's life, Skywalker rammed his new lightsaber through the slave trader's chest, impaling his heart and lungs, landing him dead on the floor. Obi-Wan saw Anakin walk back to him after slaying the beast. Here's what he had to say. His expression had been so empty. His gaze neither held triumph nor distress, only blankness.
Good, Anakin, good.
Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Anakin always had that machine-killing ability within him, even as a young Padawan at 13. However, it was only about 10 years later that he would be donning the same expression to kill younglings and his own friends. It's a pretty interesting story, don't you think? There's also a passage of Anakin using Force fire to kill an enemy, of course now in Legends, but it was when he was a young Padawan as well. But I have to find the book and read it to you. It was pretty intense as Obi-Wan watched him do it from afar. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode about Anakin, and if you could, share it around with your friends. I feel it's definitely one of those stories that should be known about Anakin's early stages into the Jedi world. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all in the next episode of Star Wars Theory with that new Vader comic coming in a few days. Until then, my fellow Jedi and Sith friends, remember,
The Force will be with you always.